Okay, welcome back to all of you guys. Nice to see everyone back. Must be refreshed with some nice food and conversation. That's one of the great things about coming to these kinds of events is you get to meet a lot of interesting people, a lot of people that are into wholesome things. Get to have nice conversations at lunchtime. So perhaps you guys enjoyed some time together. So we're going to continue on with learning. Now that you guys have been exposed to the Eightfold Path, you're starting to understand each one of those factors. You saw one of those factors involved meditation. Sometimes people put a lot of emphasis on meditation, and meditation is very important. You wouldn't be able to get to enlightenment without meditation, but you also wouldn't be able to just meditate your way to enlightenment. As you guys see, you need more than just meditation. If you were meditating, even though you can't do this, but let's just say you were meditating for 23 hours a day and you went outside and you were using wrong speech where you were being bitter and harsh and hostile with people, you're not anywhere close to enlightenment, right? So you're going to need other things besides meditation. But meditation helps you to cultivate certain qualities in your mind that you're going to need in order to make your way to enlightenment. So now that you guys have been exposed to the Eightfold Path, I'm going to help you to understand more about meditation because we've been doing this each morning and each afternoon, but now we're going to go in and talk about it in detail. And just like always, you guys are welcome to ask any and all questions that you like as we get going. So first, let's just talk about some meditation basics so that you guys understand what I'm talking about when I refer to meditation. Meditation is a technique to actively train the mind during dedicated, independent, purposeful training sessions to eliminate unwholesome qualities of the mind and or cultivate wholesome qualities of the mind in the positions of seated, lying, standing, and walking. Right? So it's a dedicated, active, purposeful training session. Sometimes nowadays, someone might say, oh, I'm going to go for a jog and do some meditation. Or I'm going to go walk the dog and meditate. Or I'm going to go for a drive and meditate. While these things might be very beneficial for you and you might enjoy doing these things, it's not meditation. Because what you're going to hear me share is that it's important that you meditate 2 or 3 times a day. And if you just went and walked the dog 2 or 3 times a day, thinking that you're getting to enlightenment, or you went and did some gardening 2 or 3 times a day, thinking that you're going to get to enlightenment that way, you wouldn't be able to get to enlightenment that way. So those things might be important for you and you might decide to use them, but it's important to understand what meditation isn't and what meditation is not. So meditation is a dedicated, active, purposeful training session where you're eliminating certain unwholesome qualities from the mind and you're cultivating certain wholesome qualities in the mind. And you're doing this in the seated, lying, standing, and walking positions. Then it's helpful to know that you need a teacher for meditation. As you guys have heard, it's only a Buddha that would be able to get to enlightenment by themselves without the help of any teachers or any guides. So you're going to need teachers and help along the way. And there's people that sometimes don't know that and they try to actually get to enlightenment without a teacher. And I'll give you guys a story of just one incident of that happening so you can understand the importance of having a teacher. And I don't suspect any of the things that I'm going to describe to you will ever happen to you because you have the ability to know that it's wise to have a teacher. But there was this one individual one time that was in his home country. He was watching YouTube videos, reading books, meditating, trying to figure out a way to train his mind. And after about 2 years, he got to a point where his mind was having obsessive thoughts, where he was sleeping 23 hours a day. He was having difficulties in his relationship with his fiance. He couldn't go to work anymore. He was a practicing physician and he couldn't go to work any longer. He was having depressive thoughts. He was having suicidal thoughts. He was having all kinds of difficulties with his mind. And this is because he was trying to do things that he didn't understand how to do. And he worked himself into this problem. But at one point, he must have figured out that he needed help. So he reached out to me as a teacher and I started helping him online. And I was helping him just as much as I could. But eventually, I let him know that his case was so serious that I wouldn't be able to help him online, that he was going to need to come to Thailand. So he ended up coming to Thailand and spent some time there, and I helped him. And then he ultimately went back to his home country, and he did work his way out of all of those problems. But for about 4 to 6 years, his life was quite miserable. I mean, if you can imagine sleeping 23 hours a day in and day out, not being able to go to work, having suicidal thoughts and depression, this is because his mind was functioning in a way that wasn't helpful for him because he kind of worked himself into a corner, not realizing what he was doing. So you're going to need a teacher. You're going to need guides. And now he's back to work. Everything's fine. He's a physician, practicing physician and all this stuff. But during that period of time, it was very difficult for him. Again, I don't suspect you'll ever experience that because you know that you need a teacher or a guide. Whether you consider that to be me or somebody else is totally up to you. That's your choice. But just know that I'm here to help you no matter what, because you can't ask questions to a book. You're going to need to have a teacher to ask questions to. And sometimes you're going to be doing meditation, you're going to be training your mind, you're going to be experiencing different things, and you're going to need to reach out to a teacher and ask for help. And if what you get back from your teacher is that's normal, just keep going, that can be reassuring for you, and that can be help you to build your confidence so that you can continue forward. But if you don't have somebody that you can reach out to, you might find it to be difficult. So I suggest you have somebody that you can reach out to and connect with. And you don't have to talk to that person every week or every month or even every year, but just have somebody that you know that you can reach out to from time to time because you're going to need that help. There's four positions to meditate in: seated, lying, standing, and walking. These positions are taught because your body can't permanently be in the same position all the time. You're going to need to switch at different times. So I'm going to explain to you how to use these different positions, and then I'm going to share with you how I use them. But remember, you're not believing anything. No matter what somebody teaches you, don't believe what I share with you. This is just guidance of how I've used these, but then you can use them and see in what situations do they help you. So the seated position is typically on the floor or in a chair or a sofa or wheelchair, a bench, something like this. This is like the primary position for somebody to meditate in. You might sit with your legs crossed with some cushions or any number of different ways. You find what's comfortable for you. There's not just one fixed position to meditate in. So the seated position oftentimes is the primary position for people to use because it's really easily accessible and you can do it just about anywhere. But then in the seated position, you might sometimes notice that your body has aches and pains. If you're noticing these aches and pains in the body, you might just decide to switch to a lying position where you can lie on the floor face up. And if you've done yoga, they call this resting pose or corpse pose. Some people call it shavasana. These are the different ways they refer to it, where you're laying on your back face up and your arms are out to the side. In this situation, all your muscles are completely relaxed and you can meditate in that position. So that might be something you switch to or you start in that position potentially. But with the seated position and the lying position, sometimes you can fall asleep and get kind of drowsy. And if that's the case, you've got standing position and you've got walking position to help you with that. So when you stand up straight, you clasp your wrist in front of you put your arms on the side, or you can clasp behind you and you just stand there with your eyes closed. And the same thing that you do with your mind that I'm going to teach you guys to do with breathing mindfulness meditation, you do it exactly the same way, no matter what position you're in. In terms of seated, lying, and standing, you're going to do exactly the same things. It's just that now that you're standing up. So I've used this in situations where I was sleepy and drowsy, but also I've used it like if I was at a bus stop and I was waiting for a bus and I knew it was going to take 20 minutes or so for them to come. There's nowhere to sit down. So I would just stand there and meditate. Or I've been like in line at the Department of Motor Vehicles, and this line only moves like every 15 or 20 minutes. And I get like a little 5-minute, 10-minute meditation here or there. So you could use it in those situations too. Where the walking position comes in is if you're drowsy or sleepy, you could switch to a walking position. I'm going to teach you guys this tomorrow, but it's also really good for an overactive mind. If you notice that your mind is overactive with lots of thoughts and it's just kind of like restless in the mind and lots of energy, and the last thing you're thinking about is being still and sitting in one spot, you could use walking position because that's going to help you to get that out. So I'm going to teach you guys that tomorrow. So these are the four different positions, and you can use them interchangeably, either in one meditation session, you can switch between positions, or you could just use one all the way through. It's totally up to you. Then in terms of starting and conducting your meditation session, it's helpful to understand that the mind is the boss and the body is the employee. What I mean by that is if you'd like to go see the boss, if you'd like to train the boss, you're going to have to go through the employee. You can't just go see the boss. So if the body is painful or is experiencing a lot of pain, it's not going to take you to go see the boss. But also, if the body is luxurious, it's also not going to take you to go see the boss in that situation either. So you need the body to be in the middle where it's comfortable, where it's not painful and it's not luxurious. And that way, it's going to take you to go see the boss and you can train the mind. In the teachings of the Buddha, when you see his teachings, because I have these in the book series where he explains how to do meditation, he talks about setting up mindfulness in front of you before you start meditating. You guys understand a little bit about mindfulness now, that it means awareness of mind. So what you would like to do is have some awareness of mind as you're easing into the meditation. You're not interested in just plopping down into the meditation. Because if that was the case, it'd probably be 5, 10, 15 minutes before you started to experience benefit. So that's why I taught you guys chanting yesterday. That's what I use in order to set up mindfulness in front of me before I start meditating. If you use chanting, great, use that. But if not, there's other things you could do, right? You could kind of ease the mind into meditation. You're going to need to find something for yourself that kind of brings some general awareness to the mind as you ease into meditation, that you're not just plopping down into the meditation. And this is how the Buddha guides you, is to set up mindfulness in front of you before you start meditating. In terms of your time, frequency, and schedule of meditation, is it possible for you to meditate at exactly the same time every day? You guys are shaking your head no. Why? Impermanence, right? It's not possible. So if you set up on your calendar every morning at 8 a.m., I'm going to meditate, I can tell you right now it's not going to happen, right? Because of the universal truth of impermanence. It's just not possible for you to meditate at exactly the same time. If somebody shares with you that you have to meditate at 3:30 a.m. every day, and this is the best time to meditate, there's nothing special going on at 3:30 in the morning that's going to make your meditation any better or any worse. So you don't have to meditate at exactly the same time every day. In fact, you can't meditate at exactly the same time every day. It's just not possible. There were times where I was meditating and I just started maybe 3 minutes, 5 minutes into my meditation, and my son walked in my room and he's like, "Dad, I need you to take me to school." And I was like, "I thought Mom was going to take you to school today." He's like, "Yeah, me too, but she's gone. I don't know where she's at." I was like, "All right, well, I guess I'll take you to school." Whereas if I was attached to meditation, if I was craving and longing, yearning for it, then when he did that, I would be angry or frustrated or agitated. So you can see that there's no such thing as a wholesome attachment or a wholesome craving, because anytime you're holding on to something tightly, even something like meditation, you'll be frustrated, agitated, or annoyed when you're not getting what you want. So you're not going to be able to meditate at exactly the same time every day. But what I suggest you do is you build up to 2 or 3 sessions per day for 30 minutes or more, realizing that this is going to take possibly 6 months, a year, or 2 years to build up to gradually build up to that. Because you might start with 5 or 10 minutes. And if that's where you start, wonderful. Start with 5 or 10 minutes. You're not in a race with anybody. You're not in a competition with anybody. You can gradually build this up on your own. But if you have an option between one session for 30 minutes or two for 15, the 2 for 15 is going to be much better for you. The frequency is more important than the duration. So you would like to get to a point where you establish these anchor points. The Buddha meditated 3 times a day: morning, midday, and evening. And if you know about the Buddha, that 2,500 years ago, that's why I mentioned, if someone tells you that you need to meditate at 3:30 a.m. every single day, and there's something special that's happening in the solar system at 3:30 a.m. in the morning, and it's going to make your meditation better. Well, how did the Buddha figure that out? Because there was no such thing as watches 2,500 years ago. The timepiece hadn't even been invented yet. So in terms of like an accurate time, he would have never been able to figure that out. So you're looking to get your practice back to as close as what the Buddha did as possible, because that's what's going to produce enlightenment. So what I suggest you do is you have anchor points, morning and evening, and you would like to meditate in those 2 times. And if you can get a middle of the day meditation in, great. But if you get 2 in per day, you're going to be making your way to enlightenment. And what you'll find is if you're meditating in the evening, if you normally go to bed, say at 10 o'clock, you're not interested in waiting until 9:45 or 9:50 to meditate, because your mind is not attentive and alert. Remember, it's a dedicated, active, purposeful training session where you're actively training your mind. So if you're going to do it close to bedtime, you'd probably like to be doing that around 9 or 9:15 to give your mind time to be able to be trained. But there's no reason why you couldn't meditate at 6 or 7 p.m. too. You could meditate there as well. It's really up to you. But if you're going to meditate close to bedtime, be sure your mind is attentive and alert during the meditation, because that's going to produce the best benefits. And then in terms of keeping track of your meditation time, sometimes people are taught to have an alarm during their meditation. And if you do this, there's going to be 1 or 2 things that are happening. You set the alarm and your mind's going to be in meditation. And you're going to be thinking, is it time yet? Is it time yet? Is it time yet? Is it time yet? Your mind's going to be craving, right? So you're trying to get rid of craving. So that's going to produce it in your mind. Or you're going to be deep in meditation, getting all kinds of benefit. eh, 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 eh. Oh man, if I would have just not set my alarm. So where you don't have to, I don't suggest you set an alarm. Maybe in the evenings and on the weekends, just start your meditation. So what you would like to do is look at your time and it says maybe 9, right? Maybe 9 a.m. or 6 p.m. And now you meditate. And then when you're done, you look at the time. Okay, 9:15 or not or 6:15. So you know you've been meditating for 15 minutes and now you just kind of expand that over time. So if you need to set your alarm, maybe in the mornings you're on your way to work and there's just no way you can meditate more than 20 minutes, then set your alarm, right? But where you don't need it, it's best to not have it. So you'd like to build up to 2 or 3 sessions per day for 30 minutes or more and gradually building that up and realizing that frequency is more important than duration and gradually work towards expanding it. You might notice that you have sleepiness during your meditation. This is pretty common, especially when you first get started. Because right now you might be sleeping, but you might not be getting very good quality sleep. And when you start meditating, your mind's going to start performing more optimally. And what you're going to notice is your mind's going to have more of a tendency to be interested to fall asleep, either during meditation or even after meditation. And there's kind of like this little hump that you got to get over. It sometimes lasts for 3 to 6 months where you're kind of meditating and you're noticing that you're kind of sleepy and drowsy during meditation and maybe even during your day. But then over time, you'll get over that hump and you'll notice that your mind is more bright and more uplifted and more cheerful. So if you're noticing sleepiness during meditation, you have two things that you could do. You could switch positions, right? You could switch to a standing position or a walking position, or you could just get some sleep. There were times where I would start meditating. I'd be kind of 3 to 5 minutes into the meditation. I'd be really drowsy and barely staying awake. And I just say, all right, I'm going to get some rest. And I would just take a nap, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever it was. And then when I would wake up, I would just start meditating then, right? So just get some rest. That's what your mind needs. Don't force it. You're not interested in forcing the round peg into the square hole. Then you might notice physical sensations during your meditation. What I mean by this is like an itch. If you're meditating and you're noticing a little itching sensation, the best thing to do is ignore it because you know it's impermanent. It's going to arise, it's going to change, and it's going to fade away. But sometimes you might be in your meditation and you're just having this overwhelming urge to scratch it. And if that's the case, go ahead and scratch it. But next time, try to go a little bit longer. Try to go like 8 seconds or 10 seconds or 12 seconds. Eventually, you get to the point where you can go through the whole life cycle of that itch and your mind's not disturbed by it. What your mind's doing is it's wanting permanent comfort. And now you feel like you have to itch. But as soon as you itch your knee, your shoulder is going to have an itch. And then as soon as you itch your shoulder, your neck's going to have an itch, right? It just kind of moves around. So see if you can go through the whole life cycle of that and not be disturbed in your meditation. You might notice that you have physical stimulation during, or visual stimulation during your meditation. The visual stimulation that I'm talking about is like some people see different colors, like yellow and blue and green and purple and all these different kind of things. You can have these kinds of things or even vivid imagery during your meditation. The reason why is because sight is actually occurring inside the brain. The eye itself is just pulling in the light. It's just a lens, and the sight is occurring inside the brain. So when you close the eyes, there's actually still sight. You can actually still see. So, and we have some doctors here that can confirm that, right? Like you guys do work with the eyes, right? So the thing that's happening here is that your brain is actually physically changing. That's where the visual stimulation is happening. Sometimes I have students that will call me up and they will say, David, I saw this green color during my meditation. Does that mean I'm going to get rich and wealthy? It's like, no, that's not what it is. Or they'll say, David, I saw purple during my meditation. Does that mean my boyfriend or girlfriend's going to come back to me? What does that mean? It doesn't mean any of these things. What's actually happening is the physical structures of your brain are actually changing. Doctors and researchers show us this. Scientists are now studying it. They use MRIs and CAT scans and things like this because you're training your mind, which is non-physical and non-tangible, but there's this brain, which is a physical organ. These two things are two separate things, but they're connected. So when you're training the mind, the physical structures of the brain are changing. And when this is occurring, you might actually see things like green and yellow and purple, but eventually you'll get past that. You might even hear these things occurring. There were times where I could hear this. It was in my skull. I could hear like, I could hear it changing. I used to walk around with a lot of pressure in the skull, I used to have migraine headaches 3, 4, 5 times a week. I used to even vomit. They were so bad. But then after training the mind and these physical structures of the brain changed, I no longer have pressure in the skull. I barely ever get a headache. The only time I ever get a headache is when like maybe I'm in air pollution because the city that I come from, every once in a while there's quite a bit of air pollution. So in those kinds of situations, I'll get a headache, but I don't get any of that stuff anymore. So if you're experiencing those kinds of things, when you train your mind, you'll notice that those things start to transform because your brain is performing more optimally. And scientists are showing us this, and doctors and researchers. And then sometimes people are taught to meditate with external stimulus. What this is like beads or music or incense or things like this. Or maybe there's this special candle that you have. And maybe you've been taught to meditate this way, and that's what you're doing now, and it's led you to this point, but you would like to move past this. Sometimes people are meditating with phone apps and things like this. And the thing is that all these things are impermanent. And if your meditation practice is based on these things, that means that when you don't have those things, you're not going to be able to meditate. So if you have this special candle or these special beads and you can only meditate with those, when you're on holiday somewhere, maybe you're in the mountains trekking, or maybe you're at a park, you're walking through a park and you're like, wow, it's so beautiful here. I'd like to sit down and meditate. Oh man, I don't have my special candle. I can't meditate. Or, oh, I don't have those special beads with me. Right? So if you've been taught to use those things and the mind's holding on to them, I suggest you train your mind to let them go and get to the point where you only need 3 things to meditate. These are the only 3 things that you'll ever need. And you'll have these 3 things with you for the rest of your life. All you need is the body, the mind, and the breath. Those are the only 3 things that you need to meditate: the body, the mind, and the breath, right? That's it. So you have all 3 of those things with you. But if you're currently meditating with phone apps or candles or incense, you can slowly peel those things out of your practice. And the way that I suggest you do it is gradually. Because your mind craves permanence, it does not like impermanence. It doesn't like change. So when you start changing things, even in your meditation practice, your mind tends to not like that. So you can do this gradually. So say you're meditating with music now. What I suggest you do is you do 1 session with it and 1 session without it. And then you do 1 session with it, 1 session without it, 1 session with it, 1 session without it. Do that for like a week or so until your mind's adjusted to that. Then you do 1 session with it, 2 or 3 without it, 1 session with it, 2 or 3 without it. Then you do that for a week or so. Then you do 1 session with it, 3, 4, 5, 6 without it. So you make these small little incremental changes to the point where your mind doesn't even recognize what you're doing. It doesn't recognize the impermanence. You can do this with unwholesome things that you're choosing to eliminate. Like say if I was a smoker and I was smoking 20 cigarettes a day, I would go down to 18 for like a week or two. And then when I get acclimated to that, I'd go down to like 15 for like a week or two. And then I'd go down further and eventually get to the point where you can purge these out. Not only can you do this with unwholesome qualities that you're looking to eliminate, but you can do it with wholesome qualities that you're looking to cultivate. Like let's just say that you were thinking about moving to a plant-based food supply. If you just tried to snap your fingers and eat plants from now and forever, it's going to be really challenging for you. Where you can actually do this gradually, where you can have like one day that you eat plant-based food, one day not. One day plant-based food, one day not. And then gradually increase that. One day plant-based food, or I'm sorry, one day meat and 2 or 3 days with plant-based food, or one day with meat, 3 or 4 days with plant-based food. So you can gradually increment wholesome things into your life too, because then this will be a more sustaining and lasting uh, ability to make that change, and your mind will adopt to it more naturally, and it'll be sustaining for you. Do you guys have any questions on any of these things? Yes. Oh,
Yes. During meditation, sometimes I'll get like a tingling sensation to the top of my head in the beginning of the meditation. That is just normal.
yeah, this is where the brain is actually changing. You can feel it at the top of your head. You can feel it in between here. This is called the third eye. You can feel it there. You can feel it other places too. You might notice these kinds of things. This is just the physical structures of the brain changing, and it's actually an indication for you that you're headed in the right direction.
Perfect. Thank you, Teacher David. And then sometimes I feel as if my thoughts are, I get many thoughts during meditation, like things I have to take care of or things I forgot to take care of. And um, oftentimes I feel as if saying in my mind, breathing in, breathing out
Mhm.
helps me. But I'm wondering if that is something I can do or should do.
Yeah, you can do that as you're getting started and your mind isn't really well disciplined. You can kind of like even talk to yourself and be like, let it go, let it go, let it go, these kinds of things. Ultimately, what you would like to get to where is internally, you can cut it off and let it go without having to do any of that other stuff. But initially, you might need to do those kinds of things. And that can help kind of redirect your mind, like we were talking about earlier.
Mm.
That's what's going to help you to do that.
And then the length of the breaths, does it matter? Just something natural?
The volume of air that you take in is going to be different from person to person, but the pace that you breathe can be consistent. So sometimes I breathe into the mic. I don't know if this mic's going to let me do it, but the one in Thailand does. I'll just kind of show you the pace of my breath. It's like this. So let's see if it works. Yeah, okay, good. So if I'm meditating, it's going to be like this. Just a very slow, steady, consistent breath. And there's a gap between the inhale and the exhale. And it's okay. You're not going to die during that time. There was a time where I was kind of afraid that I was going to die and I had fear of death. So during that little gap, I was like, oh my goodness, I got to be breathing. What am I doing? So you like to really slow the breath down. And I had to do some breath work outside of meditation to train the body and the mind to be comfortable with a really slow, steady breath like that. So you like to uh, slow the breath down because the mind in the unenlightened state is typically going really fast because it's trying to fulfill those cravings. So it's going to be like go, 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 go. But if your breath is slowed down and your mind is connected to the breath, then it's going to slow your mind down. So in meditation, when I'm guiding you guys and I say develop a slow, natural, steady, consistent breath, sometimes when people hear me say that, they think natural breath means the way that you breathe right now. But that's not what I mean. When I say develop a slow, natural, steady, consistent breath, it means you need to develop the mind and the body to breathe that way, where it's nice and steady and consistent.
Thank you, Teacher David. And then last one, which so I've been sort of I was born Buddhist, so um, there's several teachers in Burma that are very famous for Vipassana meditation. So there's particularly three different sayados, which we call like higher monks, and essentially they say that breathing mindfulness is just a sort of putting a band-aid on, and that vipassana meditation, I'm just trying to, I guess my point, my question is, are there different types of meditation other than breathing and loving kindness meditation that could get you into enlightenment? Because there's many meditation courses, there's so many types of meditation, sometimes it's confusing.
Yeah, I'm going to show you the words of the Buddha on the four types of meditation that he taught, because he only taught four. And what people are teaching as Vipassana isn't one of the ones that the Buddha taught, that people are just believing this because they're not looking back to the discourses. There's nowhere where the Buddha teaches, depending on what you were exposed to, is the body scanning. That's usually what they teach you. He never taught that. But what he did teach you is to develop the four foundations of mindfulness. And it's breathing mindfulness meditation that trains you to be able to do that. So, breathing mindfulness meditation was a priority for the Buddha. And you can see this in his teachings that that's the primary form of training that he used for terms of meditation because it addresses the primary problem, which is the craving, desire, attachment. It's training your mind to let go. So you'll see that more clearly when I teach you a few more things here. So people really stand behind Vipassana a lot. But I guarantee you, if you ask those people, do you experience anger and sadness and frustration? They'll say yes, they do. because they haven't figured out yet how to get to the peace and joy of enlightenment, because they're not doing breathing mindfulness meditation, because that's what the Buddha prioritized. And you can see it in his own words when you study with his own words.
Teacher David.
Yep. Okay, so now I will show you guys what the Buddha taught in terms of meditation. This is where he's introducing his 4 types of meditation. And you can see Vipassana is one of these. He was talking before this to his students, and he was explaining some things that they needed to develop in order to get to enlightenment. And then he says, having based himself on these 5 things, the meaning the 5 things that he had just talked about, he says the monk should develop further another 4 things. He says the perception of unattractiveness of the body should be developed to abandon lust. This is a meditation to eliminate sexual cravings. If you notice you have really high sexual craving and you would like to knock that down or even eliminate it entirely, there's a meditation for that. Loving kindness should be developed to abandon ill will. This is to eliminate anger, hatred, and ill will in your mind. I'm going to be teaching you this on Sunday afternoon. It's a specialized meditation to help you eliminate that from the mind. It also helps you to eliminate negative self-talk within your own mind. So that's a different form of meditation than you've been doing so far. Mindfulness of breathing, or breathing mindfulness meditation, should be developed to cut off thoughts. So this is going to teach you how to cut off and let go, applying right effort. So you're going to develop mindfulness and awareness of mind with breathing mindfulness meditation, but then you're going to be able to cut off and let go. So when you notice those bodily sensations arising, you're going to need to cut off and let go. That's what's letting you do that. So if you haven't trained with breathing mindfulness meditation consistently on an ongoing basis, you're not going to even know that the bodily sensations are there, and you're not going to be able to cut off and let go. So that's why you need to be practicing breathing mindfulness meditation, to be able to train your mind to be aware of those bodily sensations and be able to cut it off and let it go as soon as possible. Then he says the perception of impermanence should be developed to eradicate the conceit, I am. When one perceives impermanence, the perception of non-self is stabilized. One who perceives non-self eradicates the conceit, I am, which is nibbana, or enlightenment, in this very life. This is a meditation to realize non-self. These are the 4 meditations that I teach students. And in Volume 1, Chapter 11, I detail all 4 of these. But here, what I've done is I've summarized these and put them in the order that students oftentimes are learning them. That breathing mindfulness meditation is helping you eliminate craving, desire, attachment, the wants and expectations. Because remember, meditation is a dedicated, active, purposeful training session to eliminate certain unwholesome qualities and cultivate certain wholesome qualities. So here I'm showing you each of the unwholesome qualities that you're eliminating with the specific meditation. And then I'm showing you the wholesome qualities that you're actually cultivating. So with breathing mindfulness meditation, you're cultivating the wholesome quality of mindfulness or awareness of mind, and the singleness of mind or concentration, where you can focus on a single object. So this is what you're focused on with breathing mindfulness meditation. I'm going to be teaching you guys loving kindness meditation later on Sunday, and then these other 2 you can learn at other times. But this course, we focus on these because the first one is the one that's the real foundation. So here's some words from the Buddha. The first one, he's saying, a pot without a stand is easy to tip over. A pot without a stand is easy to tip over. The pot is the mind. The stand is your meditation practice. What he's saying is a mind without a meditation practice is easy to become discontent. So if you think about the mind in the meditation practice, as you meditate, your stand becomes wider and wider, and it's harder and harder to tip your mind over. You won't experience discontentedness. This next one, he's talking about the importance of breathing mindfulness meditation. Will help you to know what we were just talking about. He says, monks, there is one thing that when developed and cultivated leads exclusively to liberation, to freedom from strong feelings, to elimination, to peace, to direct knowledge or experience, to enlightenment, to nibbana. What is that one thing? Mindfulness of breathing, breathing mindfulness meditation. This is that one thing that, when developed and cultivated, leads exclusively to liberation, to freedom from strong feelings, to elimination, to peace, to direct knowledge or experience, to enlightenment, to nibbana. So what he's saying is that there's one goal for this meditation, is to get you to enlightenment. That's the goal. That's the purpose of this meditation. He's not saying you only need one thing to get to enlightenment, because otherwise he would have just taught meditation and that's it. We wouldn't have 45 volumes of books that are this thick. It's kind of like saying your car. It leads to one thing, which is transportation. But you need more than just transportation in your life in order to survive. You need other things. So he's explaining to you that this meditation, if you choose to do it, it leads to one thing, which is enlightenment. So that's where when you study the original teachings and then somebody tells you, oh, that breathing mindfulness meditation, that doesn't get you to enlightenment. That's not what the Buddha said, right? So you can know and have confidence in what the Buddha said. Okay. So here's how we do this meditation. You guys have already been doing it with me a few times as part of this course, is that you focus on the breath, either the sound of the breath or the sensation of air moving over the skin and into the nose. As the thoughts arise during meditation, you cut them off and let them go and bring the mind back to the breath. Anytime the mind is experiencing a thought, it moves off the breath, you cut that off and let it go and bring the mind back to the breath. The goal is not to eliminate your thoughts. Sometimes people think that when they hear the guidance. Your goal isn't to eliminate your thoughts. Your goal is to notice your thoughts sooner and sooner and cut them off and let them go easier and easier. Even an enlightened being during meditation will experience thoughts. But the difference is that in the unenlightened state, you will have a bombardment of thoughts. It'll be like thought, 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 thought. Your mind will kind of be overburdened with lots of thoughts. Or you'll have a thought, you'll indulge in that thought, you'll follow that thought. 2 or 3 minutes down the road, you're like, oh yeah, I'm meditating. That's right. Let me bring my mind back to the breath, right? So this is what the unenlightened mind experiences. In the enlightened mind, you'll be focused on the breath and you'll have a thought, but you'll notice it right away and you'll cut it off and let it go and bring the mind back to the breath. And then there's going to be this period of time where the mind's quieted and still. So you might get 30 seconds to a minute of quietness and stillness in the mind where the mind's just still and quiet. And then you'll have another thought. And then you'll notice it right away. You'll bring the mind back to the breath right away. So you will always have thoughts. You need thoughts, right? But if you're in meditation and you have a certain thought, you like to cut it off and let it go. Whether it's a wholesome thought or it's an unwholesome thought, you cut off everything and anything during your meditation because you're trying to build the qualities of mindfulness and the ability to easily cut off and let go. But then in day-to-day life, you're only cutting off the unwholesome thoughts. If you're in day-to-day life and you're like, hey, I'd like to make my friend dinner, or I'd like to buy my mom some lunch, or I'd like to take my wife out to dinner or something like this, no need to cut that off and let it go. You're not causing any harm there. You can go forward with that thought in your day-to-day life. Essentially what meditation is it's like taking your mind to the gym and you're exercising the mind and you're building certain qualities. It's just like if I was a professional pole vaulter. I might go into the gym and I might do weight training, cardiovascular training, agility training. And that looks very different than what I do for my sport if I was a pole vaulter. Looks completely different. And the same thing here, that when you're training in meditation, you're cutting off anything and everything because you're trying to train your mind to let go. And you're trying to build that mindfulness. But in your day-to-day life, you're only cutting off the unwholesome thoughts. You're thinking about punching your boss in the face, cut that off and let it go. Right? That's going to cause harm. You're not interested in doing that, right? So cut that off and let it go, right? But if you're thinking about something wholesome, hey, go forward with that. No need to cut that off, right? So your meditation practice is going to look different than your day-to-day life because you're training in the gym versus going out into the world and practicing these qualities. So your goal isn't to eliminate your thoughts. It's to notice them sooner and sooner and cut them off and let them go easier and easier in your meditation. And then in day-to-day life, you're cutting off the unwholesome thoughts. When you feel that urge, that craving, that anger, that frustration, that's what you would like to cut off and let go of. But you have a wholesome thought, hey, go forward with that. No harm in that. Okay, so this is breathing mindfulness meditation. Any questions on this? So I'll share this with you and then I'll invite you guys for a meditation session if you like. This is the last thing that I have to share here on this topic is the Buddha teaches, meditate monks, do not be complacent. lest you regret it later. This is my instruction to you. This is the only thing you will ever find from the Buddha where he's like, okay, come on, go do something, go meditate. He never pushes you. He never forces you. And you're not interested in doing that with the people around you either, because the more you try to force and pressure people to do things, the less interested they are to do things, right? Because if someone tries to force or pressure you to do something, what are you going to do? You're going to resist it. You're going to dig your heels in. So our life partners, our children, the more you try to force these people to do things your way, the less likely they are to do things that way. So the Buddha never forces or controls or pushes you to do anything. This is the closest thing you'll ever get from the Buddha of saying, okay, go do something. So he's saying, meditate. Do not be complacent, lest you regret it later. So when you're angry, when you're frustrated, when you're feeling guilty and shameful, when you're having stress and anxiety, if you haven't been meditating, you're going to regret that. And that's what he's saying. One time my son came to me at like 11 p.m. at night. He comes into my room and he's like, Daddy, I can't fall asleep. They showed a horror movie at school today and I just can't get it out of my mind. And I know he doesn't meditate. So I said, have you been meditating? He said, no, I haven't been. I said, see, just like the Buddha said, you're going to regret it later when you don't meditate. Right? And he's like, yeah, you're right. He's like, I'm going to go to sleep. I was like, all right, good night. Right? So we'll regret it later. Right? So the way that I say this is I say, never give up. Right? Never give up on your meditation practice. Giving up on your meditation practice is like resigning yourself to feeling angry and frustrated the rest of your life. So if you follow what I share, which is meditate 2 or 3 times a day for 30 minutes or more, if you do the math of just 2 meditation sessions per day, that's about 60 meditations a month. Well, you're most likely not going to do 60 meditations a month, especially when you first get started. But if you do 50 or 52 or 54, you're making your way to enlightenment. Your enlightenment isn't going to be determined based on whether you miss meditation today or not. What's going to be determining your enlightenment is, can you consistently meditate over the next 3 years, the next 5 years, the next 10 years? Can you consistently put together enough meditation sessions and all the other practices that'll make your way to enlightenment? So if you miss meditation today, you don't have to beat yourself up. You don't have to feel guilty. That's just where you are in your practice. And now you just work towards accomplishing more meditation. So if you get 52, 54 meditations in a month, hey, great, you're making your way to enlightenment. So just gradually work your way towards that. So you don't have to feel guilty or shameful if you miss a meditation session. Just try to put together as many of these sessions as you can as you're building up your practice, and never give up. Because if you give up, that's like resigning yourself to experiencing anger and frustration for the rest of your life. Any questions here that you guys would like to ask? Yep.
So if this is the last slide you can show, I do have a question on loving kindness meditation. Are you speaking about that tomorrow?
On Sunday.
Okay, never.
Yep. Okay, so would you guys like to do some meditation? Yeah, okay. So we're going to do some meditation. We're going to do the chanting. But this time I'm only going to give you a little bit of guidance, because you guys ultimately are going to be out there meditating without me. So some of you guys, maybe today's your first day here, you haven't really gotten a lot of guidance. But what I like to do is, as this course goes on, I like to elongate the meditation session and lessen the guidance, so that by the time we get to the end of the course, you'll be out there meditating on your own without any help, and you can actually do this on your own. So for some of you guys, you've been here each day, so you'll see that I'm going to gradually expand the sessions and gradually minimize the guidance that I'm giving you. So we're going to start with the chanting, and then when we go into the guidance, I'll just give you a little bit of guidance. But remember, focus on the breath. Anytime the mind moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and bring the mind back to the breath. There'll be that period of time where it's quiet, and then we'll come out of the meditation with some more chanting. So you can take whatever position you like, either seated, lying, or standing. Those are all options for you, because you now know all these different positions. So feel free to take whatever position that you like for the meditation. Yeah, you could chant any kind of chanting. If I was you, I would look at the words and see what the meaning is, because if you're chanting where you're like asking a being to do something for you or something like that, that wouldn't be very wise, because it's going to keep the mind in wrong view. But if it's just kind of like some kind of chanting, just kind of ease the mind in the meditation, you can do any kind of chanting you like. There's nothing special about these specific chants. Mm-hmm. There's no such thing as manifestation. You actually can't manifest anything to occur. That what people are thinking is that they can just kind of think something in their mind and they're just going to make it happen. Everything that's happening in your life is based on cause and effect. It's based on decisions that you make. So you can't just sit here and manifest a new husband if that's what you were interested to have, right? You can't do that. You would, if you were interested, if you were ever interested in a new husband, you'd have to make decisions to get to that point, right? I knew you'd laugh about that. That's why I used that one. But you understand, right? You can't just manifest something. That's like poof, and it's just going to occur for you. You need to make decisions to be able to experience that. Go ahead, Bipa.
So I had a question on.
This is your new husband. He's going to get to enlightenment, and then you'll have a completely new husband.
She's been manifesting for a long time to get to this point. So.
And it's not working, right?
No.
She's been trying to manifest a kinder, more gentler husband.
So I had a question in like loving kindness meditation and also in the non-self meditation, we do affirmations.
Mm.
So what is the difference between affirmation and manifestation? So maybe trying to affirm, maybe some words you're doing is kind of almost like a manifestation. Are we saying this is not the body or, loving kindness?
What you're doing with those affirmations and loving kindness meditation and meditation to realize non-self is you're rewiring your mind. So when we get to loving kindness meditation on Sunday, you're going to hear me explain to you guys how you think in your mind, may I be peaceful, may I be safe, or may mom be peaceful, may mom be safe. You're not wishing or aspiring or trying to manifest for mom to be peaceful. You're training your mind and rewiring your mind to be more loving and kind and peaceful. So we'll talk about it when we get there, but it's not manifesting anything. It's actually rewiring your mind to be more loving and kind. It's kind of like filling up your gas tank so you go out into the world and be more loving and kind in those relationships. And that's what's going to produce the change.
Good, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so chanting, just a little bit of guidance, and then you're on your own. Then we're going to come out with the chanting. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakawa Bhutang Mahakavanang Apivateyami Savakato Mahakavata Tammo Dhammang namasami Supatipanno Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang namami Namo rasa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo rasa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo rasa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Iti piso bhagava arahang samma sambuddho. Vichacharanang sammuno sakhato rokavitu anutero pura risa Dhamma sati satatawa manusranam Oto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, and the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath, not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then, whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, breathing in and out. Once the breath is well established, fixate the mind on the breath. Whenever the mind moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Sama Sambuddho Bhagava Bhutang Bhagavantang Apivateyami Savakato Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammang Namasami Supatipano Bhagavato Savaka Sangho Sanghang Namami Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa Namo Rasa Bhagavato Arahato Sama Sambuddhassa Iti Piso Bhagava Arahang Sama Sambuddho Vichacharanang Samono Sakato Roka Vitu Anutero Purisa Dhamma Sati Satatawa Manusanam Bhutto Bhagavati. If you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Okay, another full day of learning. So, as you guys can see, the meditation is really important for your practice. And it's important never to give up because you'll go ebbs and flows throughout your meditation practice. There was a period of time where I actually stopped meditating for 3 years. It was one of the worst 3 years of my life. But eventually I got back into meditation. I didn't give up. And I didn't understand when I was giving up on meditation. I didn't understand what that was going to lead to, or else I would have never given up. So I encourage you guys never to give up because you're not going to be able to get to a more peaceful and joyful existence without it. So this is part of the Eightfold Path, but there's other things that you need besides just meditation. So now you guys have been introduced to that, and you're welcome to get help at any time as you need to learn and grow and develop and commit that to your memory. So tomorrow we're going to start out with chanting and meditation, just like we do each day. Then I'm going to teach you the 3 poisons or the 3 unwholesome roots or the 3 fires. Today you got kind of a window into the unenlightened mind with the 4 noble truths, but tomorrow we're going to go deeper into it, and we're going to broaden your understanding of what's really going on in your mind so that then you can actually understand the solutions of how to fix it. So tomorrow you're going to see a lot of things kind of coming together. Then after our mid-morning break, I'm going to be teaching the 5 precepts. That's 5 impactful decisions that you can make either wisely or unwisely. I'm going to teach you about these and help you to be able to make these decisions wisely so that you can apply it to your day-to-day life. Then in the afternoon, I'm going to teach you walking meditation. I know we've been doing a lot of sitting, but we're going to be doing some walking meditation around the house. Or maybe we go outside or somewhere else, maybe out in the community, but we'll kind of see what the weather's like at that point. So we're going to be doing some walking meditation. If your mind's overactive or busy, or you find it difficult to kind of be still, this meditation is going to be helpful for you. So whatever you guys decide to do tonight, have a very wonderful and lovely rest of your day, and perhaps I'll see you next time. Okay? Sawadee Kap. Sawadee Kap.